All right, what's going on?
Hey, Chris. I do have a funny story to tell
Okay.
to kick things off. I think it was about 3 weeks ago we did the 2005 season.
Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks ago. Yeah.
All right, there was one story we didn't get to squeeze in, but I remember, when you go through and you do your research on looking back at those seasons and everything, a lot of memories start to come flooding back, and you say, "Oh yeah, I remember that." Well, I remembered in at the very end of the season, last regular season game, 2005. We tied Grayson County, right?
Mhm.
And it was our last, pretty much our last chance at a win for the season. And because we had Warren Central coming up in the district tournament, and their odds were not in our favor. So after the game was over, the Bowling Green Daily News, who did a terrific job covering high school soccer down there, I hope that's still the case, but they did a terrific job covering us and all the other schools in the area. And they're interviewing me after the game, right?
Mhm.
And I remember giving the interview, and at some point towards the end, the reporter, got a little awkward on me, right? And just looked kind of like they were writing down what I was saying, and they kind of hesitated and said, "Oh, okay, well, good game, coach." And I remember specifically walking back to the locker room and thinking to myself, "What that got kind of awkward there, real quick, just abruptly, you know." And it never dawned on me why, right? So, leading up to our podcast 3 weeks ago over the 2005 season, if you haven't listened to it yet, you should. It's great for young coaches to listen to. Um, and I was going through all the old newspaper articles from our games. I kept them, right? And so I'm reading this write up on the game, and the reporter had asked me, what we learned this year, and I told the reporter, I was like, "Hey, if we learn this year, we can do a complete 360 turnaround." Now, Chris, what would you rather have? A 360? If you're trying to improve, would you rather have a 360 turnaround or a 180-degree
Oh gosh,
turnaround?
I don't know. 180, I guess.
Come on, you can go to Butler Traditional High School. You know, you want the 180. So that's what it was. All these years later, I've wondered, how did that reporter get so awkward on me there at the last second? And now I know why, because they weren't sure if they really needed to, put in the paper exactly what I said, or if they needed to go ahead and correct it for me. But what I should have said was, we could have
Yeah.
done a 180. So, yeah. So, hey, I'm not allowed in the math part of the building in any school I teach in because I'm so bad at math. I'm going to mess up the test scores. So, you don't want me going anywhere near your geometry or, uh, you know, anywhere near your geometry or calculus or algebra classes, folks.
All right, so I guess we should go on and get into what we're discussing today. King of the Bluegrass Cup, which is one of my favorite tournaments of the past 2 years. So let's just start off with the obvious. Kind of just talk about what exactly was the tournament and how did you just basically what led to the tournament itself.
Well, to me, it's all about program growth, exposure, and oh yeah, it's a fundraiser. I've always believed that every program, especially successful ones, should look to host a tournament. As a program, maybe you attend a tournament one year and then the next you look to host one. When I was down at Franklin Simpson, we hosted one that just seemed like a lot of moving parts, and some of that's my fault. So once I started coaching at Fairdale and figured out that we were going on to something special, it immediately became a part of my agenda. I think the idea initially came in 2012. Um, we went down to Muhlenberg County for a tournament that we put together very quickly at the last second. It ended up being four teams. We went down there and won. It was a good tournament, with a turf field and everything. So not a whole lot that you can complain about. But I remember on the way back, I told my assistant Phil, he was driving the bus. I said, there's really no reason why we can't do this at our school, and he agreed with me. Uh, he was encouraging of that idea, as he usually was. I mean, why not? In my opinion, so often, Chris, a lot of us soccer coaches and players, for that matter, parents, we gripe about our programs not being taken seriously by our schools. Well, if you want to be taken seriously, you got to take yourself seriously. Hosting a tournament is a big step in that direction. Uh, our old athletic director of Fairdale, Ernest Smith, he made a point one day to me. He said, "Hey, I want cars in that parking lot every weekend. I want kids here playing. Whatever the sport is, I want kids coming here from different schools coming here and playing." He was totally in support of the tournament, and that's a great way for your sport, for the high school soccer scene to be taken seriously, especially here in Louisville. I feel like we have a very underrated soccer scene, not just on a regional basis, but on a national basis, right? Here in Louisville, you could say that we're a basketball hotbed, a high school basketball hotbed. Not many people are going to argue with that. And one reason for that is because we have tournaments, Bluegrass, LIT. But my point is that because of those tournaments, people look at the basketball scene in Louisville as something to be taken seriously. I feel like, especially in the 6th region, if we want soccer to be taken seriously, if we want the city to be taken seriously, is hosting a tournament. I know there are people that will say, well, there's not enough rental support in those places. There's not enough manpower. Folks, you're talking. I didn't do everything by myself. But if I had more than 5 people helping me on a given day in those tournaments, the tournaments we've hosted, it's news to me. But anyway, at that time, to my knowledge, nobody in the 6th region was hosting anything. I know DeSales years ago had hosted the Colt Cup. It went away. Now it's back. Good, right? What's that? What's that? Who won the? Serious question though. Who ended up winning the Colt Cup?
It was Male, or no, Ballard.
But nobody was hosting anything at that time, in my opinion. So I decided, I was like, we can host a tournament. We should. When you do that, in my opinion, you're giving a little more credibility to your program and giving back to your school. You're also giving back to the soccer community in your area. Again, creating a hotbed. A big part of a hotbed, you got to see some tournaments going on. It's also worth noting that we had a couple of successful fundraisers in 2012 and 13, but also knew we had a group of kids coming up that would not be in position to sell mattresses or fan cloth the way other kids could. So hosting a tournament seemed like an easy idea to raise money for my program as well.
Yeah, exactly. It did. I always liked the fact that you did it on both levels for JV and varsity, because really, you get a few varsity tournaments, but there really isn't a whole lot of JV tournaments out there. So I thought that was pretty interesting that you did it for both levels.
To me, in my opinion, a credible program hosts both a varsity and a JV tournament. Now, a lot of people are going to balk at that. It's it's a lot of work. Well, how credible do you want your program to be?
So just kind of talk a little bit about how long did it kind of take to plan that? Because it seems like, as soon as the season's over with, the next day you're already working on the schedule. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, the reality is you're never done planning a tournament. I think you could ask Lloyd Gardner, the guy that he's pretty much Mr. Fairdale, and he's overseeing the King of the Bluegrass basketball tournament since its first year. I guess that might have been in 1981, 83, somewhere in there. Long time, right? Lloyd's a guru. He's he lives to be organized, and he told me he had a checklist of a yearly checklist schedule when he got things taken care of for the tournament. But the reality of it is, man, I mean, you're planning things for the tournament. There's always going to be something that pops up that you try to get taken care of. Or if you do have everything else done, then it's on you to find something else that you can add to a tournament, right? So let's say you got everything else done. You got ball boys in place. You got clock keepers. You got parents or people working the ticket gate, right? You got everything handled, taken care of on Wednesday before that tournament. So what's stopping you from having a few students make some more signs for it? What's stopping you from, seeing if you can get a certain food vendor to come in? I know you don't want to compete with the concession stand too much. Which, by the way, Chris, I'm gonna put your feet to the fire later on. I'm gonna demand which tournament that you've been to has the best concession food. All right. I I've had years that we were still planning for it the Friday night before, unfortunately. The ideal scenario is to book your date first and keep it there a year ahead of time, and then you keep it that weekend every year. That's the weekend of. That way it gets burned into your players, your parents, and the community's conscience. The middle of September usually seems best because you're not fighting heat as much as you might be in August, and you're also not fighting terrible weather that you might see in October. Now, I do know.
Oh gosh,
In 2018, it rained all day. Yeah, yeah, and then last year it was stupid hot. So, so there's not a lot of evidence to back that theory up for the middle of September. But hey, it's my tournament. I can schedule whenever I want. Once you have your date booked, support from the AD, which we always had. Ideally, you have your teams booked between October and Christmas. I know we've had years where I was still looking for the last team all the way leading up to spring break. That's just what happens. The first year we did it, we got, I think we were originally going to have 6 teams, and we got stormed out the night before. So we ended up only having 4 teams. We had to reschedule, and we only ended up having 4 teams. And that 4th team, which ended up being Anderson County in 2014, I think I heard from them the Tuesday or Wednesday night before the tournament saying they were coming. So, yeah, I mean, that's just reality of it. When you're playing a tournament, you need to have, as a coach, if you're organizing the tournament, you need to have a few teams, a few coaches' phone numbers that you can text on Friday night before, say, hey, this team's backed out. Y'all want to come tomorrow? I mean, that's just the reality of it. That's what goes into it. It can be stressful, but you want to try and have your teams booked between October and Christmas. Once you have the teams and schedule set, you get that information out to the participants going into Christmas break. After that, it's all about getting trophies and T-shirts ordered. Trophies can be done in the spring, but T-shirts, ball boys, score, and clock keepers usually aren't finalized until the week of in a lot of cases. Usually you want to try and get players that are going to have rides to be ball boys and clock keepers. Sometimes that wasn't the case. So that's just where we were at with manpower and parents. Those are some of the dilemmas we faced in hosting this tournament, but we pulled it off. I mean, so again, you want to build your reality is because with King of the Bluegrass, odds are you're playing teams that you wouldn't otherwise see. You build your game schedule around that tournament. You really do. That's
right. Exactly. So
really
this started out as a 2-day tournament, right? The past few years it's been 1 day.
Yeah, it started off as a 2-day tournament. We initially had teams playing 3 games. When I came back in 2018, there's a term that I've heard here in the last couple of years that goes, moderation is the key to moderation. All right. A lot of these kids, a lot of these teams are getting ready for district tournament 3 weeks outside of KOB Cup, right? A lot of kids are looking at playing the following Tuesday. So you're asking them to play 3 games in 2 days. Now, again, the argument could be, well, they're high school boys or girls, and they should be able to pull it off. Yeah, but I'm worried about them long term. And the wear and tear that goes into a kid's knees, ankles, and everything, it's going to add up in October. You mark my words. So we decided to go ahead and keep it at 2 games. Everybody gets 2 games. You got 2 games to handle your business. And we had 2 3-team divisions and 2 division champs. And you know what? It made for some good soccer. And by the way, those 3rd games on Sunday were not aesthetically pleasing because everybody's tired.
Yeah.
Everybody's ready to go home.